Welcome to the Take the North podcast. I am Dan Wiederer here with a special bonus edition of Take the North during a busy offseason stretch for the Chicago Bears. Ryan Poles and his front office staff continue to fortify the roster at Haugh. We will have a lot more on the developments, news, and nuggets that are coming out of all the latest Bears developments. But today we have a special Take the North episode. We will be joined in a few minutes by special guest Joe Person, who covers the Carolina Panthers for The Athletic. There are plenty of reasons that we're talking to Joe, and we'll get on to more of that in a minute. Always remember to follow us on Twitter at Take the North Pod. You can get all of our podcast episodes on your podcast app, on your smartphone, or wherever you listen to your podcast. And don't forget to get all our full video episodes on the 670 The Score YouTube page, where you can find all our content from what has been and continues to be a very busy Bears offseason. The reason that we reached out to Joe Person, friend of the podcast, who covers the Carolina Panthers for The Athletic, is because Joe is very relevant in our world these days. As you all know, the Chicago Bears traded the number one overall pick on March 10th to the Carolina Panthers in exchange for 4 draft picks and wide receiver DJ Moore. That was an easy starting point to reach out to Joe Person and figure out what he thought of the trade, what he thought about the Panthers' philosophy, what he thought about DJ Moore. And then in the time since the Bears pulled off that trade, they have added 2 more former Panthers to their roster. Backup quarterback PJ Walker, who was introduced to the Bears media on Thursday at Haugh, and Deontay Foreman, a late Thursday night signing, a 1-year, $3 million deal for the veteran running back who will come into the running back room and presumably fill the void that was left when David Montgomery signed with the Detroit Lions. So we had a lot of ground to cover with Joe. Really engaging and entertaining conversation with him, as it always is. We'll get to that in a minute. Remember to follow us again for all of the latest happenings on the Bears beat and all that they're doing with their roster restocking. And without further ado, here's our conversation with Joe Person. Happy to be joined by Joe Person, who covers the Carolina Panthers for The Athletic. Joe Person has never been more relevant to a Chicago Bears audience than in the middle of March of 2023. Joe, how are we doing?
I'm big in the Windy City, man.
You're only going to get bigger here for the next stretch. So capitalize on this 15 minutes of fame. Give us all your knowledge and expertise. The first question I have for you, because it's a sort of behind the curtain question that needs to be asked. When the trade went down, when the Carolina Panthers made their bold move to come sprinting up to take the number 1 pick away from the Chicago Bears on, I guess it was March 10th, what were you doing and where were you at and how did it disrupt your Friday?
So I was actually right here in my office, and I'm sure you saw, there was starting to be kind of murmurs on rumblings on social media. And so I was I was hoping it was going to be a nice casual Friday, and I was going to roll right into a JV high school baseball game. And that didn't happen. So I kind of reached out to our athletic guys, and they were kind of both out of pocket too. I think Kevin Fishbane was going to the Big Ten tournament, and
he was.
It was. I think I made the comment to those guys that usually, or I might even tweeted this. Usually, like Friday afternoon, that's bad news dump day or time.
Correct.
And we all. Where were you, man?
So that's why I wanted to get into this, because I think that people in our profession could write a book of where were you when, right? And the way that your life gets turned upside down. I'm going to start with this because I came into the NFL in 2011 and I started in week 3 of that season on the Vikings beat. And Mark Craig was covering the Vikings at the time. He was my partner on the beat. 2 weeks earlier, the Vikings had opened the season in San Diego against the Chargers. And you know as well as I do that trip was one that beat writers looked forward to. You're going out to California. The weather's always the same. It's a beautiful trip. You're looking forward to it. You're there. So Mark gets out to San Diego. He brings his golf clubs and he makes himself a tee time at Torrey Pines for Saturday afternoon, thinking day before the season over, this is golden, right? You just go out, you play a little golf. He pulls into the parking lot at Torrey Pines, pops his trunk open, gets a message from Vikings PR. We just signed Adrian Peterson to a massive extension. He's going to be available at the team hotel this afternoon to talk if you're able to come over. So Mark had his clubs behind the trunk, picked them up, put them back in the trunk of the rental car, closed the trunk, and drove to the Vikings team hotel. Right. And so his lesson the day that I started the beat was, don't ever think your plans are real solid. Right. You better. So here's my story. Last week,
my wife and I are spending 2 nights in the city on a gift certificate that we got at a school fundraiser. Right. So we've got a hotel downtown. We've got a nice dinner planned. We're celebrating her birthday. The whole thing is set up to be a nice Friday. We said, let's do it this week because it'll be the bridge between the combine and free agency. What could possibly go wrong? Joe, I take like 3 naps a year. This was one of my naps on Friday afternoon. I'm sleeping. I'm literally sleeping when the trade goes down. I wake up, I turn on the TV in my hotel room, and the way I learned of this trade is the CBS News local affiliate here in Chicago. I hear Matt Zahn's voice at the end of the sportscast say, and Ryan Poles gets the deal done. And I go, wait, what? Sprint across the room to my phone. I've got 28 text messages. Thankfully, my colleague Colleen Kane was all over it. We got good teamwork there. We were able to kind of finagle some things through, and I was able to still get to my wife's birthday dinner. Right?
Wow.
I hope you got to your son's JV baseball game, or maybe you didn't.
Did not.
Okay, so
and he went 0 for 2 with 2 walks anyway. So screw it. I'm glad I missed it.
But that's the life we live, and I don't think everyone always appreciates how quickly your day can get disrupted by big news. It's huge news, and one of the first things I wanted to ask you, because of the timing of the news, is in what you've learned and what you've kind of gleaned from the Panthers on where they're headed here. What was the urgency for them to pull the trigger as early as they did to go storming up to get that number 1 pick?
So I think they felt like the Bears obviously were talking to other teams, and I don't think Ryan Poles ever called Scott Fitter with like a deadline, but the sense I get is the Panthers felt like it was starting to get closer to go time, and that maybe if they waited, the price might go up. And they just sort of like the idea of being, as the Bears were, since week 18, in control of the draft. They have privately let it be known that they would potentially look to trade down. Obviously, it might be 1 spot, probably wouldn't be more than 2. I don't know that it'll be any spots, but they can, it helped them set their free agency thing too. That was a big thing too. Because if they weren't going to have DJ Moore, they wanted to know kind of what, besides needing wide receivers, what kind of money they had on the cap, against the cap. And so, it was crazy. I mean, I had gotten a sniff. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I'm not going to be that guy like saying, oh, I knew this was coming. I did think the Panthers were definitely aggressively at the combine looking to trade up. I thought it would be to Arizona at 3, because then you have one of those 3 guys and you're not paying as much. You probably hold on to DJ Moore. But clearly they have 2 in mind at the most. And so they go all the way to 1, and it's going to make for an interesting 6 weeks here in Charlotte.
Well, part of what confuses me is the idea that they could still trade out of that number 1 slot. And I guess if I'm hearing what you're saying accurately, it's like there's going to be a floor of how far down they're going to be willing to trade, because obviously you make a trade like this and you give away a premium asset like DJ Moore, you're walking into May with a rookie as your future quarterback. There's no question about that, right? And now you've got to figure out which one of the 3 or 4 you like the most, and hopefully there's multiple guys, right?
Yeah, I would say while they're saying they're open to it, I think it's a long shot that they would move again. And then I don't know how you let's just say the Panthers are on Stroud and the Texans are on Bryce Young. And so you want to flip-flop. Well, what benefit does Houston have to move if they're pretty sure you're taking Stroud anyway? So I don't know. I think if they go through this process and they love 3 guys, sure, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Because that was my other question, was because in order to make this trade, you better love at least 1 and hopefully more than 1 to make this trade. And it's so early in the process, you know as well as I do, that they still have to go through pro days. They still have to have on-campus visits with these quarterback prospects. And so you better be really certain that at least 1, hopefully more than 1 of those guys is going to knock your socks off, right?
Yeah, for sure. And listen, let's not discount the idea that they have a very desperate and rich owner. I mean, all these guys are rich, but I mean, Dave Tepper's really rich.
Richer than you and I?
18.5 billion. So maybe you,
okay, a little bit.
You and I and Rich Campbell can cobble it together. But so no, but listen, he buys the team from Richardson in 2018. They haven't been to the playoffs. They hadn't sniffed the playoffs since really this year. It was the closest they came with an interim coach and Steve Wilkes and a bunch of guys who are now on the Bears roster, making plays on offense. But so yeah, is it possible the Panthers, paid too much and did it too early? Absolutely. But that's kind of Dave Tepper's MO. They were in on Matthew Stafford 2 years ago, didn't get him. They were in on Deshaun Watson, kind of balked at the guaranteed money late in that deal. And so here they were. And I think they looked at Derek Carr and they were like, it would be okay. But Tepper's all about making a big splash. And, oh, by the way, they have a quarterback guy in Frank Reich that I don't think they wanted to saddle him, with just another guy to start his tenure here.
Well, they got a quarterback guy in Frank Reich, and then they have two quarterbacks that we in Chicago are familiar with, and Andy Dalton and Josh McCown, who are going to be part of the grooming process for this young guy. So there's a lot of crossover in these two storylines right now. The number one pick is now your problem. You can deal with that for the next 6.5 weeks and beyond. Good luck. I hope it goes well for you. I hope there's not another trade on a Friday afternoon. But the only known commodity in this trade right now is DJ Moore. And DJ Moore has the city of Chicago very, very excited. And people are very energized at the idea of adding a proven difference-making go-to guy to an offense that can help Justin Fields take the next step in his development. So you've covered him. You've seen his entire career in Charlotte. What did the Bears just get in DJ Moore?
I think that I would talk with folks with the Panthers from time to time, and you would hear things like, if this guy played in a bigger market, he would be a star.
Okay.
The 3 consecutive 1,100-yard receiving seasons. Here's what I would say about the first thing that comes to mind with DJ Moore is that the guy is tough. Like he's not a huge guy. I mean, he's not tiny. I think they listed at like 6
Sturdy.
foot. He is, and he runs a lot of stuff, a lot of slants, a lot of crossers where he is getting banged around. And I think he missed 2 games in 5 years here. I mean, he is a tough dude who shows up every Sunday. And you and I were texting, like, he is fast. I mean, he is not the fastest guy in the league, but he's fast enough. Like, he can create separation deep. He's versatile. He can get involved in the run game. And then the thing I respected about him for the most part is he did not have, he's a pretty understated dude who never really got prima donna, never became a diva. And I like that, in a leader. He's a quiet guy. I think you guys talked to him yesterday.
Yeah, he was a little quiet on Thursday. Yeah.
He is, but my story on him too, a very quick aside, and I think I told you this too, but I plopped down in coach, going to the combine in 2018, Charlotte to Indy. And there was a guy next to me who's, first of all, that it was, I think, some older woman's seat, and she had sat in this guy, and he just said, you can take that seat. I'll sit here. And he ends up being next to me, this schlub of a sports writer, and very clearly an athlete. And I just, it turned out to be DJ Moore. And I thought that was cool. Like, no, he wasn't curing cancer or donating an organ. But the fact that he didn't know who I was, like, sometimes you see a guy's character and it's revealed when they don't know anyone's watching them. And I don't know. I'm probably making way too much about it, as I did when I wrote about it.
It's a good glimpse into the character, right? And then I think he went and donated his kidney when he got to Indy. Is that right? No, that was
I buried the lead.
That was incorrect. That was incorrect. But correct me if I'm wrong on this. Some folks that I've taken the temperature of around the league have said that he's kind of a tier 2 number 1, right? Like, he's not Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill. He's not on that level. But you go to that next class of number 1 receivers, and you can very confidently say, I don't know who else you'd put in that class. Terry McLaurin's like the first guy that comes to my mind in that regard. Is that a fair kind of assessment on where you'd put him in the pecking order of the league?
Absolutely. Yeah, I do. I don't know. Like after McCaffrey left, the Panthers really, other than DJ Moore, didn't have anybody opposing coordinators were game planning for, and I don't know how much they game plan for DJ, but I think you described it very well. Solid, really good health, durable, but again, not in the Justin Jefferson league. But it'll be good. I mean, I think he'll help Justin Fields in the middle of the field. And as I said, he can get loose deep too. I mean, sadly for DJ, one of his lasting legacies here will be the game against the Falcons, where was this miraculous Hail Mary PJ Walker to DJ Moore, and DJ rips off his helmet, gets penalized. Eddie Pinheiro, another Chicago guy. Eddie misses the what became a 48-yard extra point.
Yeah.
They go to overtime, and then Eddie missed another field goal, and Panthers lose.
One of the most devastating losses in the Bears' decline after 2018 was a game in which Eddie Pinheiro ever so slightly pulled a kick outside the left upright to lose a home game against the Chargers when they were on their plummet. So folks in Chicago can relate to the pain of an Eddie Pinheiro missed field goal that results in a loss. You mentioned PJ Walker. We'll get to him in a minute because we got to meet him in Chicago on Thursday as well. And now we're going to be able to meet another former Panther, Deontay Foreman, who signed a 1-year, $3 million deal with the Bears late Thursday night. I was a little bit surprised at the price tag. It felt like a really good prove-it value for the Bears, particularly given what Deontay Foreman did down the stretch of the season for Carolina after Christian McCaffrey got traded. Enlighten us on what you saw from him, particularly in that finishing stretch of 2022.
Well, and I think it shows you, too, that the Panthers are going a little different direction in their run game. I mean, Steve Wilks helped make Deontay Foreman more of a household name because when he took over, because they were like, we're going to hang our hat on the run game. Obviously, they trade McCaffrey, and it's not going to be, it ain't going to be flashy. We're going to be downhill. We're going to be physical. And it was right in Foreman's wheelhouse. And he played very well. He's for a guy who hadn't played a lot over the years, he does have kind of weirdly some wear and tear on his body just for the style of play that how he runs. Like he's not missing many tacklers. He's trying to go through them. But and the Panthers had, I think once they signed Miles Sanders, it was going to have to be a very team-friendly deal for Foreman to come back here. The Panthers did leave that open, and they had offered him before free agency. Obviously, low ball offer, less than what the Bears ended up getting.
Yeah,
but I think he will be a kind of like DJ Moore, a durable type dude for the most part, and just kind of a lunch pail. I like talking to him. He was pretty good quote and wasn't afraid to when week 18, he got ejected for fighting Marcus Davenport, and his Foreman's quote after the game down at the Superdome was something along the line of like, no grown man's going to put his hands on me. And a day later, Ken McGuire had to kind of clean it up, the agent, with a statement from Foreman.
More of a bruiser than a burner, right?
For sure. Oh yeah, okay. Absolutely.
That's the only part that surprised me because I thought the Bears seem intent on adding speed to their offense in any way that they can. And obviously, basically, Deontay Foreman comes in and replaces David Montgomery, who's now gone to the Lions. It's going to be an interesting matchup. Is he all right in pass protection? That's one thing that they haven't been able to get out of Khalil Herbert consistently that I think they wanted to get some veteran pass pro also out of.
He wasn't on the field a lot in passing situations. They would bring in Chuba Hubbard. And he doesn't catch a lot of passes either. By the way, which is why Chuba Hubbard was in the game. But
sure.
So I don't know. I don't know that I could give you I mean, he should be good in pass pro, but I don't know that he was asked to do it a lot here.
PJ Walker, the last Panther that has joined the Bears, maybe not the last, there may be 6 more by the time we finish recording this episode. But obviously, what he's like as a QB2. He's coming here and he's taking over Trevor Simeon's backup role to Justin Fields. We got to meet him on Thursday. Seems pretty grounded and very understanding of what that role is after a lengthy stint in the league and a couple different places of understanding what that is. What do you know about PJ that folks in Chicago should take note of?
So he came here. He had obvious ties to Matt Rule. He'd quarterback for Rule at Temple. And so toward the end of Rule's tenure, those guys sort of got tainted because the fan base was just so over, and the media just over the Rule tenure. But PJ Walker is a professional. He really should have kept his starting job last year. He got a high ankle sprain, and when he came back, I think they went through so many quarterbacks. I think it was Sam Darnold. It might have been Baker Point Part 2. But at any rate, he lost his job for an injury, which probably shouldn't have happened. But they were just at a point where they were just they wanted to look at Sam Darnold again, frankly. But Walker was kind of the loyal soldier. He would privately, he was very clearly unhappy about it, but he didn't go complain to the media, or I don't know if he complained to the front office. I don't think he did. He just kind of took it. And I think he'll be good for Justin Fields. I mean, he's like you said, he's been around the league for a while. I mean, he was in the XFL as recently as whatever that was, 2020. But PG, if you have to rely on him for a long stretch of games, that's probably not going to be good. He has a tendency to throw the ball into trouble, and he throws back against his body a lot. But a good playmaker. He's not afraid. The moment is never too big for PJ Walker.
It's seven starts, I think, right, during his time in Carolina.
He went 4-3 here. Which
clearly capable of winning, in an emergency
better
role
than the other guys they've trotted out here the last 3 years.
Man, no question about it. Well, that's a lot of ground to cover. I want to close with this because you sent me a video over text of your son throwing gas. Right, I think that was a 5-pitch strikeout that I got on Thursday night. It looked like just locating, throwing with velocity, and making hitters look stupid.
Well, you are very nice to ask. And I sent that to you because I know you have a young fireballer coming up through the ranks in the greater Chicagoland baseball scene.
I wouldn't go with the adjective fireballer, but he pitches.
It's so much fun, man. That's why I hate last Friday, back to bring this full circle. I might have just taken my laptop had he been pitching that night in his JV game, but man, this is just so much fun. We talked about it at the combine. You coach basketball. I coached him in baseball as long as he and the real coaches wanted to have me around. And that's no longer the case. So now I'm just the dad being obnoxious and sending all my buddies videos of him.
Well, I will be the assistant this year on his travel team and the House League Royals in the 10U League here. And the House League Royals have their draft on Saturday. And so the big board in my office here, I can't turn the camera around and let everybody know. It's quite a matrix here of what we need to do to put together our 11-man roster for the 10U Royals. You would be surprised. I lost my bid, Joe, to live stream that draft. The other dads didn't think that would be a good idea for all the parents, but you take some chances every once in a while for content.
I'm going to need a picture of the whiteboard.
Yeah, I'll send you the tiers. I have a mock draft. And then the last story that I'll tell you, just based on this full circle, Dave Burkett, as you know, covers the Lions in Detroit. And he has a story of being at an out-of-state tournament with his girls' basketball team, his daughter's basketball team, and he's the head coach. And it's a late January night in 2000, and I guess that would have been 21. And the Matthew Stafford trade goes down. And he's literally sitting there going, what do I do? I'm supposed to coach a girls' basketball game in 45 minutes, but the Lions just made this massive trade that is going to shake the franchise for a while. So he ends up telling his top assistant, you've got the girls for this next game, and writes the story of the Matthew Stafford trade from his car in the parking lot of the gym he was at to coach his girls basketball team. I mean, that's what I'm telling you. We could compile a book of the 50 greatest life disruptors that the NFL has thrust on us.
Well,
no one's complaining. We're just letting you know that sometimes it's not all as glamorous as it looks like.
And when The Athletic lays me off, let's get together on that book.
We can do it in your spare time. You got a ton of spare time. I've seen the way that you navigate the combine. We'll get it done. We'll take it.
All right.
Joe Person, thanks for joining us.
All right, buddy.
That was a lot of fun. I have to thank Joe for joining us and carving out time in his busy schedule to give our audience at Take the North a whole ton of insight and valuable intel on some of the new Bears that have joined the efforts to turn this from a last place team into a team that can actually take the North and compete for championships, hopefully much sooner rather than later. Obviously, we all know that this is a stair-step approach that Ryan Poles is taking. He was adamant again on Thursday morning that he's not going to be able to fix everything in one off season. We all knew that coming into this stretch. The Bears will continue to peck away at the long checklist that they have in front of them. Remember, the draft now is less than 6 weeks away, and so the Bears have 10 picks as of this moment to use to help fortify their roster in the draft in late April. They will continue to work through these next few waves of free agency to fortify the roster, and so with that, we go back to the second and third waves of free agency. We will monitor all that. We will bring you all the latest news, developments, and analysis as we go forward. Thank you again for joining us at Take the North. One more time, I want to thank Joe Person for joining us this afternoon, and it is going to be a fun 6 weeks as we continue to cross this bridge of the Bears offseason into hopefully a more meaningful future. I'm Dan Wiederer. Take care, everyone. Enjoy your weekend.